I've just tracked down Benny's Space Squad and we'll take a look right here on Boone Builds. This is a little set for the new Lego Movie 2 coming out. It's called Benny's Space Squad. It has 68 pieces. A lot of people have been really excited about this. It seems like I've heard from a lot of people that when Lego stores first put these on the shelves, they just like flew off the shelves. Like every other Lego Movie 2 set, has stuck around the shelves and has been somewhat easy to find. And these just are disappearing like crazy. I have been glancing at my local department stores like Target, Fred Meyer, and Walmart fairly frequently, and today I popped into Fred Meyer again, and today they've restocked. So I was able to pick up these guys, and I'm super excited. So we've got some instructions, and it basically just shows how to put the guys together. Let's go ahead and dive in and do this. This set reminds me a great deal of some of the little box sets with space minifigures from like the late 80s or early 90s. I remember like this was a thing that you could just go and buy, a little box set that had several space minifigures in it. I miss that. That's something that I, think back on to my childhood that was really cool. And this is cool. This is neat. I think that a lot of people are really gonna like this. I could see some people thinking that it's, strange or maybe unfortunate that they would go ahead and reproduce some of these. Like, at first glance, it looks like the yellow and white, maybe pretty much identical to the way they looked in the 80s. So here we've got Benny. He's got his torso looks printed to look like it was scuffed up. So that's kind of fun there. And he's supposed to have a walkie-talkie with him. Where's the walkie-talkie? There we go. All right, so Benny gets the walkie-talkie. And then we'll turn the page. And these all have names. Yellow is Kenny, blue is Benny, pink is Lenny, and white is Jenny. So here we're putting together Lenny. We've got a pink torso. This is cool. This is a color that's, never existed for classic space. And we get regular plain these old classic heads with two eyes and a smile. And I think that's really cool. I don't know if these heads are really produced all that much anymore, if at all. So it's kind of a neat thing to get here with these guys. Definitely a classic look. I know this was pretty much all we had up until like 1989 or something like that. We'll throw this guy a wrench. Looks like Lenny gets a wrench here. And then we'll go on to, who is that? Jenny? Jenny gets white, air tanks, plain face, and kind of like some sort of handheld device. You could pretend it's a light, you could pretend it's a gun, you could pretend it's, I don't know, you could pretend it's a lot of different things. Some sort of sensor. Thing I like about this is a handheld minifigure accessory, very, very similar to something, that goes all the way back to classic space days. So there we go. We got blue Benny, pink Lenny, white Jenny, and we'll get onto yellow. I love yellow. Oh, I'm assuming that's what comes next. Yep, there we go. So who is this? Oh, Kenny. Yellow is Kenny. So we'll put Kenny's legs on. And where's his head? Rolled way over here. Put Kenny's head on. Oh, gotta put his air tanks on first. Air tanks! And then we'll put on his head. Cute little smiling face there. And his skin is like exactly the same color as every other part of his minifigure body here. I do really like these helmets because they are much more like the classic space helmets than some, helmets. Lego space helmets changed in like the late 80s, and the base helmet piece has remained basically unchanged for all that time. And now they're giving us, basically a reproduction of that old Classic Space helmet. I forgot to give Benny his air tanks. You guys should shout at me and be like, hey Boone, don't forget Benny's air tanks. He's got a cool face on the reverse. Wow, that's like really scared or something. I'm gonna put his happy face on there. There he goes. There you go, Benny. I think it's funny that all these space people have rhyming names. And then we get to put together a little robot. All right, so now let's see. There, we put this thing. This is, you know, other pieces that have been around for a very long time. This is one of them. This element dates back to Classic Space. Similar to the levers here. I don't know when the blue lever base came out. I doubt we had blue lever bases back when Classic Space sets were being produced, but nevertheless, I do know that these cheese wedges are new compared to, you know, this is definitely a piece that we did not have in the 80s with Classic Space. But the blue and yellow, the blue and transparent yellow is definitely, you know, a throwback. Color scheme, we'll put a couple arms on this little robot. One of the hallmarks of the Classic Space theme was, you know, all of the little ships. It seems like, you know, I guess the big ships, it seems like often came with some sort of little rover that came out. And a lot of the little ships and other things came with little robots. So we get a little robot, and that definitely reminds me of when I was a kid. Okay, moving on, here we go. Now we are gonna put together a little rover. Just like I said, you know, little rovers and little robots were some of the hallmarks of Classic Space, and we get more of them here. Put this slope on, and then we get these bricks that go on the front with some clips. These certainly have arrived on the scene since Classic Space sets were in production. I think this would have been achieved by placing a couple of clip plates between two, you know, a 1x2 plate and then a couple of clip plates and then another 1x2 plate. It's probably how they would have achieved something like that back in the 80s. These 2x2 plates that are sort of half plate, half tile are also very new. So while this rover definitely, you know, harkens back to Classic Space, it is certainly something that we couldn't have exactly built, you know, 30 years ago, but it's fun to build it now. Keep cruising along here. We get these little skid plates on the bottom, sort of these upside down, or I guess inverted kind of dome plates down there. And let's see. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, no, here it is. Okay. We'll put the steering wheel here. Got a gray steering wheel and a blue steering wheel. I think we also get to build a little spaceship in this build, so that is coming. This is turning out to be a fun little build. This reminds me so much of being a kid. We gotta stick these tires on, and we'll pop each of these on. And let's see, who should we put on our rover? Maybe, I haven't given Kenny his metal detector here, so I'll go ahead and put him on the rover. There you go, Kenny. And you can stick your metal detector back here. There we go. So there is Kenny on the little rover. He's gonna go have some adventures on a planet surface. And we'll go ahead and build the little spaceship now. We get a plate, trans red plate back here, a couple of wings. And this thing certainly is another, you know, element that reminds me of Classic Space. I think it was very typical to put this kind of thing at the front of little spaceships back when Classic Space was being produced. I guess I need to stop saying back when Classic Space was being produced, because now, man, I mean, this certainly seems like it is back in some way. This is an interesting piece, 2x4 slope brick. So this is not an element that was in production when Classic Space was, you know, regularly on shelves. And I think that producing this 2x4 slope with the printed Classic Space logo has done something to help distinguish between printed elements for Classic Space that are actually old and printed elements for Classic Space that are new. So I think that there are probably, you know, some ways that collectors might appreciate that. Still being able to distinguish some of those old parts from the new parts. Although, as I said, you know, this yellow torso and this white torso, I think in some ways are kind of diminishing that a bit. I don't really mind it. I'm glad to have some Classic Space characters readily available. And, you know, those old Classic Space, they made enough of them that they're not, like, terribly valuable or anything. But, anyway, here we go. Put on a little antenna that goes on the side here. That's neat. And a little booster that goes on the back. And those are both achieved with, you know, very similar style to Classic Space, but also using some elements that we did not have in the Classic Space days. So let's see, we'll put Benny on this little Classic Space ship. Oh man, I love this. This is so cute. And he can fly around. So those are the Classic Space minifigures from Benny's Space Squad. You'll have to let me know what you think of these figures. Please subscribe to Boone Builds for more great LEGO videos. Thank you so much for watching, and build on!